After over 200 videos and a few years of making content on this channel, it's time for a home recording studio tour. Before continuing, make sure to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon to be notified about all our new videos. Let's start with the center of my recording setup, and that's with my computer. This is just a desktop I built about 5 years ago, and it's got an older AMD processor in it, so it's not very good anymore, but it's still fast enough for recording. There's 24 gigabytes of RAM, but that's mostly to help with editing for the videos on this channel, and I also have about 16 terabytes of storage space, plus some additional SSD storage. There's nothing here that's particularly special, but one interesting thing is I can manually control some of the fans in the computer with the fan controller on the front. This lets me reduce some of the noise from the computer, but it's still not quite as quiet as if I used a laptop or a computer that was built to be quiet to begin with. On the desk, I have a few monitors set up that allow me to spread out some of my work across them. That's for convenience, but it's not absolutely necessary. For software, I use a few different digital audio workstations. The one I use depends on the type of project I'm working with and how heavily I'll use MIDI versus some other instruments, since I find some software is better for this than others. The digital audio workstations I usually use are Reaper, Traction Waveform, and Cakewalk by BandLab. All of these are free or inexpensive options for software that you can use in your own home studio. With all these free options available, I don't see any benefit right now to spending hundreds of dollars on a digital audio workstation, especially for a lot of beginners. I also have a lot of free Vst plugins that I've searched for over time. There are some paid plugins as well, but most of these were either received with other equipment in a bundle or provided to me for the YouTube channel, such as the Traction plugins. For more information on a lot of these different digital audio workstations and plugins, look at some more in-depth tutorials and reviews on this channel. Next, we have how our signal gets into the computer. I have two main audio interfaces that I use to do this. For most purposes, especially recording instruments and microphones, I use the Focusrite Scarlett 18920. This is an 18 input, 20 output audio interface that's set up in my rack, and we'll look at this rack setup a little more closely in a future video, so subscribe to the channel to see that. This is a really good audio interface because of all the inputs it has, plus the preamps are really clean sounding. It also has optical connections on the back, which connects to my Behringer 888000 preamp unit, providing 8 more microphone inputs. I bought this audio interface to replace my previous Focusrite Scarlett 18i6. That was a pretty great audio interface, but I wanted something with more options and that was rack mountable. Plus, some of the connections stopped working after years of use and beating it around. The second audio interface is a little more specialized, and that's the Avid 11 rack. The Avid 11 rack is a guitar processor that lets you plug in an electric guitar as a direct signal and make it sound as if it were running through a guitar amp. That way you don't need to use a loud amp and disturb others around you, or tweak your sound with a microphone and other equipment. This is a USB interface, but it's also possible to use it as a standalone effects processor or connect it to the Focusrite Scarlett 18920. I do find it easier to just use it as an audio interface on its own though. That way we can do interesting things with the signal routing, such as reamping a direct recording and recording the processed guitar signal along with the direct guitar signal at the same time, so we can go back and change the way the guitar is processed after. We can also access the software for the 11 rack on the computer, which allows us to access all its settings without having to use the knobs on the rack unit itself. I also have some other ways to connect audio equipment, and that's a Behringer UM2 audio interface, USB guitar cable, and USB microphone cables. These are all for special projects that I do for the channel and not my day-to-day use, since I have equipment that can do all this, but they're really good for simpler setups. In the rack, I also have a headphone amplifier to connect more headphones, a direct box, and this XLR patch bay, which basically just brings all the inputs from the back of the Focusrite Scarlett 18920 to the front of the rack for easier access. I've collected a few different microphones for recording as well. Most of my recordings, particularly the voice for these videos, is all done with the MXL 990 condenser microphone, and that mic also came with the MXL 991 small diaphragm condenser, which I sometimes use for acoustic guitars. I also have a similar large diaphragm small diaphragm condenser kit with the Audio-Technica AT2020 and AT2021. For cheaper setups, I also have the newer condenser microphone, but I usually just use that for demo videos. For dynamic microphones, I have a Shure SM57 for guitars and drums, and a Shure SM58 for vocals. Last, I have a few microphones specifically for drums, and that's a Shure Beta 52A for the kick drum, and a complete CAD drum mic kit for recording a full drum kit. This sort of setup here with all the separate mics on parts of the kit is the reason for having a larger audio interface like the Focusrite Scarlett 18920. For a typical drum recording, I could have 2 overheads, 3 tom mics, a snare, and a kick mic, so that requires an audio interface with 7 microphone inputs. For my setup, I don't actually have any monitor speakers, so I usually just use headphones. I had a pair of Shure SRH 440 headphones, but the headband kept breaking on those. I also have a set of Shure SRH 840s that are only used when I need them for careful listening or recording. To get into more electronic music and synthesizers, I picked up a few USB MIDI controllers. I started off with an Akai MPK249, which is a 16 drum pad controller that's used for percussive instruments since I wanted an easier way to program drums and have velocity control. After that, I upgraded to an Akai MPK249, which does everything the MPK249 does since it has the drum pads, plus it has a lot more features. This has a 49-key keyboard, modulation and panning wheels, and a lot of controls for our digital audio workstation. We have transport controls for playback and knobs and faders for automation, so it's a good all-around controller. The only thing to keep in mind with these MIDI controllers is that they don't produce sound on their own. They both require a synthesizer through a digital audio workstation to make sound. The last thing to look at are some of the accessories that allow all of this to work. Recording requires a lot of different cables, so I have lots of XLR cables for microphones, a few instrument cables, a headphone extender, various patch cables, and some USB cables for direct recording. For microphone accessories, I have a few different boom stands to place the microphones, as well as a smaller floor stand for the kick drum. I also have a pop filter for recording voice, which is super important with these condenser microphones I use, and a reflection shield to keep my voice from bouncing around the room with these mics. Thanks for checking out this video on my home recording setup. If this video helped you out, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and press the bell icon to get notified about all our new videos. You can also check the video description for products featured in this video and social media links.